So my name is Dana James. I'm founder of Black Iowa News, and we are getting ready to have a great discussion. We've got great people in the room who are part of Black Iowa News' virtual statewide call that we do every week at noon on Wednesdays. And so we wanted to bring some of that discussion into the public because some of these things are very important discussions that we all are having in our homes and our networks about DEI, the economic blackout happening today, just everything, just the vibe that's around us right now with all of these changes that are happening in our country. So bear with us. We want more people to come on and be a part of this. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit right now until we make sure everything is functional, that we want you to visit blackiowanews.com. That is where all of our news is. We also run a statewide newspaper. It's quarterly now. The next one is coming out in a few weeks. And then we'll have one in April. And then another paper will start in June. We'll start monthly. And so that's a little bit about Black Iowa News. Always looking for people to freelance. And today, especially, we want you to click on the business directory where you can find many Black-owned restaurants. So today, if you're taking part in the economic blackout that many consumers are, you can avail yourself of that. So it looks like we are functional on some of the platforms, which is great. And so I want to do a little bit to just introduce the people I have in the room today, and then we're going to kick this conversation off. So we're going to start here with Abena Sankopa Imhotep. We have Leah Williams. We have Nagus Rudison Imhotep. We have Sewell Craig Williams. We have Kelly Forkenbrock, and we have Rena Risper so far. And we have invited some others, and we hope they come in. But right now, what we want to do is just give each person an opportunity to share a little bit about themselves and a little bit about why they're here today. And then we're just going to kick the conversation off. So let's start with Kelly Forkenbrock. Kelly.
Everyone, hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm Kelly Forkenbrock, a public services librarian at North Liberty Library here in North Liberty, Iowa. And I'm also a contributing writer for Black Iowa News. I am here because, number one, I just love engaging in these conversations with these fabulous people. Every week we meet on Wednesdays for our on-call, and this is an extension of that. So I'm happy to be here for that. But I'm also here to speak specifically to what's going on with Iowa libraries and some of what's happening there, especially with current legislation that's been just zooming through the Iowa House and Senate. And most importantly, I'm here to learn from everyone else. So thank you for welcoming me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly. Sewell Craig Williams, do you want to say a few words about why you're here today and who you are?
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Sewell Craig Williams. I am in the southeast corner of Iowa, Mount Pleasant area. I am a 28-year-old Army vet, retired a few years ago, and just was seeking community, wanting to know where the Black community was. Came across the Black Iowa News weekly call as an option. I am affiliated with Washington for Justice out of Washington, Iowa. I am one of the members on the board, getting ready to give up that position. And I just I'm trying to reach our community, just try to fit in where I can, help out where I can, and just try to build going forward. There's a lot of changes going on now, and I just want to know where our community stand. If something was to happen, who can we reach out to? How can we get together and just make these moves? So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Nagus?
So we got the microphone. Now we're straight. Hello, I'm Nagus Rudison Imhotep. I'm here today because of what's going on here in the society and what's happening in the Black community. I'm with Imhotep Memory Consultancy, LLC, and the work that I do right now, I'm self-employed, and I specialize in cultural memories, dealing with lecture series and cultural equity audits, recruitment marketing, and community network advising. So I'm reaching out to individuals in the African diaspora, regardless of where they might be in Iowa and around around the planet. So this is an issue that concerns Black people, and I know I need to be in it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then Leah Williams.
Good afternoon. Leah Williams. I am currently a school board member here in Johnston, Iowa, and I serve my community by making sure our voices are represented at the table, being that things are coming under attack also with not just us as our group, but also in our education, watching those things get undermined and want to get more into those discussions about ways to.
Awesome. Abana Sankofa Imhotep.
Thank you, Dana. Greetings to everyone in the room here and everybody tuning in live. I am the CEO of Sankofa Literary and Empowerment Group. We create spaces for lifelong learning that center the literature and scholarship of Black authors. I am a podcast host of Black and Privileged in America podcast, and really a student of life. And so I'm here because we are at this really critical juncture where we're being attacked on every side, economically, culturally, politically, socially. And so it's similar to Sewell and others who have mentioned seeking community and really connecting some dots. I'm here to really connect some dots from what we are experiencing here in Iowa to the broader assault on us nationally and globally. And so I really believe that we have to lean on each other and find strength in the collective and in some innovations that we have at our fingertips.
Wonderful. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's start with today's economic blackout. There's several different boycotts and economic blackouts and things like that going on that already started, that plan to continue through March. But today's really a big one. We're not supposed to be shopping for gas and purchasing things. And a lot of people have talked about purchasing things from Black-owned business. For me, it's important to participate in this economic blackout, not only just today, but going forward, because we can do something and we have to show our power. And we can't continue to participate in places that don't respect us. We can't give our hard-earned dollars to some of these companies that have rolled back DEI or don't care about us as a people. And so that's why I'm participating today. And I want to hear from everybody else in the room. We can go to Kelly. Kelly, are you participating in the blackout today? And what do you think about it?
What I think it is, it helps already just be self-reflective of especially those of us who are privileged enough to just get the lunch, get the $15 lunch and go shop at the grocery store before we get home. It really makes you self-reflective of just how easily we disperse our money. And it's even easier to do it online because it's almost like just another function of participating in the internet zeitgeist, if you will. So for me, it's already been very self-reflective of, oh, that's right, I'm not getting my Dunkin' today. Oh, that's right, I'm not, going out to lunch today. I'm reserving myself and staying in. So it's been a moment of self-reflection for me. I wonder if that's been, if anyone else is experiencing, how am I spending my money? How being cognizant of the urge to spend money. That's what the experience has been so far for me.
Okay. What about you, Leah?
For me, it's different because I could get away with going to a lot more Black-owned businesses, being from North Carolina. And so being here in Iowa is reflective of how few businesses there are. And if we want to be self-sustainable, what direction can it go in? The rapper Killer Mike, he did a documentary. And I love that he tried to navigate just seeing what it would be like to go a whole day eating everything Black-owned, from what is produced by your hand, what are you going to eat, to drive, to use your cell phone, and all the things. And he didn't make it very far. And when you think about the dollar being circulated in the community, our dollars spend the fastest. Our dollar doesn't last very long because we're very focused on consumerism. And needless to say, sometimes I feel like just keeping up with appearances versus making our dollar really matter. Are we looking at investing on our houses? And as we discussed recently about how can we create an economic group within ourselves to build those businesses. So today, it was easy. I did all my purchases up until this time and just been talking to people that I know about making sure they're focused on, and if they, don't even use your credit card, they use cash. So I do want to see what our data will show. Like, would this make a huge impact, or is it going to be something we need to do for longevity?
And I'm remiss in not introducing my bestie, my good friend, my mentor and colleague, Rena Risper from Lansing, Michigan, who runs the New Citizens Press. Rena, thank you so much for being here. What's your thoughts about this economic blackout today?
Interestingly enough, being from Michigan, I love looking at what Iowa is doing as well. And that's something that we really need to do. We need to reach across state lines. We need to reach across and get family members involved. As Black people, when we look at the amount of money we spend in material items, like, we are presented with items that are so much more expensive, and then it is marketed to us as being better when actually it's just a pair of Wrangler jeans with some bedazzling on it. You know what I mean? And once we start looking at how things are marketed to us, I think that we'll be able to make a better decision. I personally know a lot of people in Michigan that are actually doing the economic blackout, but I have not heard from a lot of the younger African-American population. They're on the struggle bus right now, trying to figure out how they going to get the bus to get to work and get gas. If your mama gave you $30 for gas, you're going to take the gas money and go get some gas. So while we're talking about this, we need to also strengthen our young people to be more self-sufficient and look at it from the perspective of, we need to work together more, and we need to work together more across the lines. It was very strange today. It did seem like there were less people on the road. Maybe it was my psychological self, but this is not a race. This is going to be a lifestyle. So while we're looking at not having, like Leah said, Dunkin' Donuts, Kelly said not having Dunkin' Donuts, we need to start looking at how we can make Dana's grandma's pound cake, okay? And then split it up and put it in the freezer, okay? That's what we need to start doing. We need to really start making a conscious effort.
But the strength is in doing something, because there are a lot of people that don't think that we can even do anything, that we can't come together on an issue like this. So I wanted to move to Nagus. The question had to do with the economic blackout today, and are you participating in it? Do you believe in it? What's your thoughts on it?
I am an economic blackout. And because I try my best to always use my money towards people who look like me and spend money with people who look like me. I don't go to McDonald's. I go to African restaurants in my community and go and eat there instead of eating from these other chains. I try my best to whatever we do. We even shop at different markets other than the Hy-Vee and the Walmarts and all the other places on occasion, because we try to do it most because I know when I go to Fresh, for instance, I get fresh vegetables, I can get fresh fruit, I can get fresh fish, because every Thursday they bring fish up from the Gulf of Mexico to Des Moines, and I prefer to spend my money with other people other than giving it to the powers that be. But I am inclined to believe that I know one day is one day. And as we stated on our last meeting, the Montgomery boycott was 381 days long. I'm inclined to believe that we're going to have to do something longer than one day to get people's attention. Al Sharpton and some of these other people of notoriety, the preacher down there in Atlanta who pushed out the boycott as well. I forgot the preacher's name. People are making efforts to do something. And the thing is, it would be wise if we work together and organized even more. here and like Irina said, going state to state to have other groups of people. That's why, as a matter of fact, when I got the email, I sent the information out and put it on my Facebook. I put it on LinkedIn that this is going on today. So we can reach out and try to let other people in our community know that we're attempting to come together and do something to make a change. I believe it's positive, but I believe that we have to do it longer than one day.
Yeah, absolutely. I know in years past, I was touting, the concept of buying Black. And this was like 10 years ago. And I wrote a story where I tried to shop Black for the whole day. And at that time in Des Moines, by the time I got off at work, there was nothing. There were no Black restaurants open. There wasn't really anything that you could buy at that time. But things have changed a lot here. There are more Black businesses. I mean, and just today, Iowa has at least one or two Black convenience stores that sell gas. So like things have changed in terms of our ability to buy Black locally. But I mean, we know it's a big world out there and there's tons of Black businesses that at any given moment, we didn't have to make the decisions to be shopping at the Targets and the Walmarts and wherever. We always could have been looking. So I'm glad that we're having this moment in a way that we're looking at more intentionally about spending our money places that benefit us and that benefit our community. Because some of those businesses in our own community, we can name some that have been here. I can think of, like a beauty supply store that I've never seen them sponsor one thing. And they got lines out the door every week. So, I mean, we need to be thinking about that, especially if we're going to survive some of these really negative changes that we're seeing already. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what are we thinking about this environment where diversity, equity, and inclusion is a bad word now? The University of Iowa president, if she had to ban the word diversity, if they wanted her to, she would. And that really struck me, that how deep this is. What's y'all's thoughts on that? Somebody jump in.
You know what? I'm going to jump in here. I probably shouldn't, but I will, because I feel like they can prohibit DEI, which is code for Black or non-white, all they want to. But back to that economic disruption, if you don't want DEI, then you don't want our dollars. And I really feel like our wallets have power and we can speak with our dollars. I want to kind of circle back to something that Rena said about the young people really struggling with how to cope with the idea of a boycott. I'm reflecting back on the bus boycotts of 1955 in Birmingham. I mean, what did Black folks do when they opted not to participate in riding the city buses? They transported each other. They leaned on each other. They went within the community, figured out what resources were available amongst themselves. And I know that there were some allies involved with that, but they created Uber, essentially. They created Uber and they were able to figure it out. Some people walked, some people carpooled, but they were able to commit to an effort long-term over a year. And after that year-long commitment, they were able to make some transformative things happen in their communities. And I say, there are innovations. It is hard. It is very hard to opt out of participating in major economic things because we live here. We have to survive. But it's going to take a change of our mindset and our values. And like Martin Luther King said, a revolution of values. That's what it's going to take. But as far as DEI, I feel like it's a fear tactic on behalf of whiteness to preserve systems. We know that in the next 20 years or less, the United States will be majority people of color, with Latinos and Hispanics being the majority. So this puts fear in the minds of a lot of people who are right now the majority culture. And whatever they can do to preserve themselves is what they're going to do. I don't think it's any reason for us to fear. It is not. I really feel like we just keep doing what we're doing, and we have to resist. We have to push back on it. We have to challenge it. And I also don't feel like there is enough visible resistance on behalf of our lawmakers who say that they disagree with all of this stuff happening. And although, especially in Iowa, like there's very little political power that the Democrats have, but to be more vocal because your constituents want you to be more vocal, I don't see why that's not happening. What am I missing? Am I missing that?
I wanted somebody to address, and somebody in the audience was mentioning this, and this is that, young people, are they prepared to fight? Are they prepared to go without? Are they prepared to sacrifice? Some older people in our community, they've had to do that already. They know what that means.
Before you went that way, is I have an immediate need tonight. This afternoon, we're at a school board. We are going to be having to remove the words diversity and equity because of a Dear Colleague letter that was sent out. And with us not having any guidance from our actual director of education, we got to remove policies and all that stuff. And some of it is being pushed without there actually being an actual law just yet. So that's the immediate thing that's happening for us in our district. And we haven't seen so far that I'm not aware of other school districts are doing it. But basically, the superintendents all meet as a metro. And this letter came out and said if they don't do that, that they're going to be facing federal funding being removed, even though there's not a law and even though there's not any guidance happening. So as far as back to what young people are doing, I feel like the adults need to kind of get on the same page first, and then we can also help our young people. But this attack is, it seems like it's more crucial because, as Avana mentioned earlier, who's going to be affected at the end of the day when it comes down to it is the way I look at education and who benefited the most about how we were educated. Those are my thoughts.
Now, Kelly, I know you've talked about the libraries. I mean, when we're talking about education and the ability to even educate people about Black culture, that's in peril right now. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. So for those who aren't aware, there are currently 3 bills directly impacting public libraries, very similar to what went down with school libraries in the state, but now they are attacking public libraries. I'll just give a summary of them each. The first is Senate File 347. Which is no librarian can make purchases of any materials that depict a sex act or visual descriptions of a sex act. So that is library-wide. The second is House File 274, which repeals the obscenity exception for libraries. Before, libraries were protected for freedom because that's what libraries are about, creating access to freedom of all materials. And now we are in threat of that being repealed from us. And then the third is House File 284, which would prohibit Iowa libraries from receiving funding if they are part of either the Iowa Library Association or the American Library Association, of which most public libraries in this state are. So again, this has just so many negative impacts, specifically on underserved patrons and underserved children. And of course, that includes Black children. So what we're doing specifically at our library, I mean, we've had several of our staff members at the Capitol fighting against this. Our director is a fierce advocate for this library, for all public libraries. We are continuing to be expressive about, we had Black History Month displays throughout our library. We just installed art for Women's History Month here at the library, and we'll be having a live interview with the women artists on Monday to celebrate that. So we are still until these laws go into place, we are still business as usual. We here at North Liberty Library, we see ourselves as a beacon of inclusion. And we practice that in everything that we do. We practice that in our programming as well as in the materials that are on our shelves. So we will continue to fight the good fight. But what I ask is that you support your local libraries, check on your local librarians. Like they say, check on your strong friends, check on your strong librarians. They really need your support right now. They need to know that you are supporting them. If you haven't been to a public library in a while, that's okay. This is a great time to start going. Most public libraries, especially libraries in this state, have excellent programming for all ages, have excellent resources that you can use for absolutely free, meaning meeting rooms, study rooms, technological devices. So please, I encourage you to support your local library in any way, shape, or form that you know how during this time, because we are fighting the good fight to make sure you and your children and everyone you love has access to absolutely anything they want to consume.
Can I jump in? For me, I think a lot of it may be FOMO, the fear of missing out. A lot of people think that if they don't, or if they don't do something, then they're going to miss out. I think I've been boycotting since last year. I figured that my money obviously wouldn't make that big of a dent, but if the organization wasn't in line with my beliefs, I'm not going to spend my money with you. So, for example, my mom's birthday was a few days ago, and she sent me, I think she texted me, and she said she wanted something, order it for her on so and so. And I told her, well, I'm no longer on Amazon per se, so what I'll do is send you the money, and you can buy it, but I'm not giving my money in that sense to Amazon. So for me, when the boycott efforts came about and I found out that so many people were involved and engaged with it, I see my money then making more of an impact to get on board with either boycotts and just help in any way I could. So I think it's positive, and I hope that we see a big change. Just knowing cognizantly of where we're spending our money, I think betters our community. As to what Leah was saying, I was looking at, I want to say Contraband, Michael Harriot's Substack, that talked about now that the Mobs for Liberty they have a website up in which people can report if their schools are not teaching diverse training and so on and so forth. And what I think he was saying was that if people could report that that the schools, like a snitch line. So if they're going to snitch that a teacher is teaching Black history, why don't we have Black people call in or email this website and say, well, you're not teaching accurate history. You're not teaching the true American history. So if that's the game they're going to play, we could combat it by doing that. Another thing I want to touch on that's not yet brought up, obviously many people know about Project 2025, but something that's dear to my heart is the feel a frog in my throat, is the part that talked about 9 through 12 grades. So when your kids go to high school, they're going to be given the ASVAB test. Now, being military, it's just sticks in my car that school-age children, mostly Black children, brown children, poor white folks, kids, will then have to take the ASVAB test. Basically, and for those that don't know what the ASVAB test is where you get the MOS based on military training for your job. So they're going to look to pull from the schools, high schools, as to who's next going to serve military-wise. And people need to be aware of this. We know that Donald Trump kids are not going to serve in the military. We know who's going to end up serving in the military. So if they're going to give school vouchers, we also need to be on board with school vouchers. We need to probably start our own Saturday schools and Sunday schools and apply for our vouchers, and because not everybody could, quote unquote, afford private schools. So these are just some things I want to put out there for food for thought going forward. So that's where I stand.
Now, I know you've talked before about the creation of your library. It's in with what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I have care about education so much, and the longer that I am in the education space, the more I realize how important it is for us to take the responsibility for teaching our young folks. This cannot be something that we put totally on the public school system or private schools or whomever. While, yes, we need to be fighting the impact of the laws that are happening in the schools, I also think it's a multiple-pronged effort that we teach our young people. We teach each other, not just the young people, because some of us don't know history. Some of us don't know our historical context. Some of us don't even know what African American means, that we are African, and some of us really grapple with that. So I think we could all stand to be educated, and the education that I am predominantly a proponent of is that community level education. It's critically important to the point where, yes, I support public libraries. I consider Kelly a hero. She is a hero. All librarians are heroes. I do some community work with our library system here in Des Moines. And I believe that books can be a luxury, so we need to have access to books on a broader level and not just in our public libraries. So similar to the idea of having a public school system, but not totally relying on the public school system to teach our children, we should support our public libraries, but don't only rely on the public libraries for our knowledge and information. Some of the books and information and knowledge that we need may not be in the library. Can talk to our librarians and ask and request certain books. There may be some that we need to keep in our personal libraries, which is why I've created the Culture Keeper books and things. It's a community library at my headquarters in downtown Des Moines. We have over 1,000 titles, predominantly books by Black authors or books about Black experiences, culture, history, you name it, across every genre. It is important that we have books. And I can't say enough about that. I just think we need to lean into our own networks in the communities that we love and care about so much while supporting our public systems, because we do live here. We do need to survive, but we also need to provide some support to our own networks in our communities.
I think that it's relatively important that we as a community start talking to each other about the issues that we might have amongst ourselves. I just got a call this morning and someone said, I didn't think you'd want to talk to me for something that happened 4 years ago. And I said, that's absolutely ridiculous. You have the right to have your opinion, but as another Black woman, we need to really start focusing on how we're going to take care of these babies. And it was regarding universal pre-K, 4-year-old pre-K in Michigan. I'd also like to comment to Sewell's discussion of the ASVAB, because right now, even though the military already has transgender troops, they just filed a memo in court that said within 30 days, the Pentagon must identify members who have a current diagnosis or history of or exhibit symptoms consistent with gender dysphoria. That's personal information that I'm not really sure how they're going to be getting that information. Whether you agree with it or not, once you allow one group to do one thing, it'll trickle down. So I'm kind of concerned about that. Also, there was a comment about one day not making a difference. I could feel it. I could feel it in the air. I mean, I'm walking outside. I walk every day. I know how many cars come down the street. I could actually feel it today. Today was that day. And Abina, when I come to Des Moines, I'm going to bring a collection of books for you, or we can talk about it. I am an avid book collector. I have a book box, and I take most of the books out that I think that I should enjoy. And I, too, am a product of my 4th grade librarian as a first-generation American moving from Brooklyn, New York to Long Island. It was my librarian who brought me into her space, and that's where I learned about everything, including things like baseball and Italian food. So if you're going to take books out, take them all out. If you're going to take away Black History Month, take away everything, but don't just Don't just use us as a way to denigrate our community. This is psychological warfare. This is psychological warfare, and we need to be prepared to have people in our faces more. People feel more emboldened. So getting your community together, your family together, your friends, even people you might not have been allies with before, is going to become so much more important. We talk about Malcolm X, we talk about MLK, but there were people that looked just like us that were not for those two individuals. So we need to really focus on coming together and having these conversations amongst each other.
How do we come together as a Black community come together when, like we've heard in this group, there's been some times where the other people that look like us have wronged us. So how do we start working? How do we trust one another? I think you're going to jump in on that. The one thing I wanted to ask Nagus in particular, in the past, we've talked, about, some of the things that we see in society, people referring to Black people as minorities. And I think you've spoken about this before, and I want to make sure that gets into this public conversation. It's about that.
Well, I know for the past 15 years, I've been doing research and studying about social justice issues here in the United States. And there's a pattern that continues. Sometimes there was a period in time where we probably fell asleep or had a veil of ignorance over our face to the fact that these people are telling us and calling us minorities when we're the global majority of the population on this planet. I read an article about white birth rate declines in the United States, and from this article, it was a 20-year study, and from 2004 to 2024. In 2004, there were only 2 states in the United States where whites had a 0% growth rate. In 2024, the study had ended, and they come to the conclusion that right now in the United States that there is 24 states in the United States where they have 0 white birth rates, where they have a decline, they're not producing enough children. So they came up with this replacement theory and the great replacement. And basically, Dr. Francis Chris Wilson made it clear that genetic annihilation is the main cause for the stir from white supremacists, because they know automatically that we can annihilate them genetically because they're numerically and genetically deficient. And it might hurt somebody's feelings to tell them that, but the thing is, when we constantly call ourselves minority, you are saying that you're less than somebody, and they're more than you, when that's not the case. Even in their thoughts, they think that your thoughts are not as important as theirs, because they have this superiority complex, so what make them think that they automatically think they're more than you. That's why I knew growing up as a child down south, I saw little white boys call grown men old enough to be somebody's daddy boy, because they knew they could get away with it. What we have to do is not sit up there and be shut-mouthed all the time and say, hey, you're not talking to me because I'm not a minority. And I still do that to this day. I know I stopped some of these big meetings I've been in the past and in these corporations. They don't like me because this is the way I talk to them, just the way I'm talking to you. I'm here to just tell them the truth, that they are not who they think they are. In fact, they have access to military and weapons and money, but they're still outpopulated, and they're nervous about that. That's why Elon Musk is having such a big whoop to do with the people in South Africa, because the people in South Africa, especially Julius Malema, who's the leader of one of the major organizations in South Africa right now, he said, I was born there. All you can do is kill me. But if you come up here in South Africa thinking that you're going to come up here and do something, you got to fight all of us. And that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid that we will treat them the way they treated us. That's their biggest fear. And so it's necessary for us to come to realize, and even, they have changed the narrative to make you think that you're less than and they're more than. And that's a bona fide lie. Population-wise or whatever, we everything we do, they try to steal it. Kendrick Lamar come down there dancing with them baggy bell-bottom jeans on, and white folks everywhere. I'm gonna get me some of those jeans.
And it's expected to double in
Yeah.
the next 20-some years, while the white population is in decline on Black people. Anti-Blackness is really on display now.
It has always been on display. It's not new. It's
Okay.
not new. We get everybody talking about, well, Donald Trump, he started it. No. That shit started in 1776. That's when it started. Where Crispus Attucks was one of the first men to die in the Revolutionary War, and he died from friendly fire. So what does that tell us? We want to be the first one to die, the first one to make Mr. Charlie happy, and Mr. Charlie don't give a damn about you. So we all know
what can we do?
what we can do is organize. That's what we can do. We can organize and put in peace and put things together like we're in this particular meeting here. But yet this is a statewide event, and we got 8 people on this call. We have one person from Michigan that come in and say, hey, I'm with you. But it's not always about numbers. We have to do what we have to do and organize as a group of people and think about the protection and welfare of our people, because they take care of theirs. My great-grandmother always told me when I was a little boy, she said, mama chickens don't take care of baby ducks. Take care of your own before you go out there and try to take care of somebody else. It makes all the sense in the world. And that's what they're doing.
Absolutely. I want everyone to, a good portion of time as we wind down, to just talk about whatever is important to you, how you're feeling. These times that we're in that do feel heavy. They do feel heavier. Yes, there are some things that we know to be true. You can't grow up in Iowa or even Michigan and not understand what we have faced as Black people in these spaces. We all know what that feels like. But it feels heavier when now, every other day, something is changing. We're seeing, society change. We're seeing schools being changed. We're seeing just this constant onslaught. People do feel some type of way about that. But I want to hear from each of you about, as we wrap up, what you're thinking now, what you want to see happen. Give people some sort of a roadmap for where you think we should go, what you think should happen next. Who wants to go first?
I think that we should take time for ourselves to balance what we are going through. There's a lot going on, and I would suggest that anyone who is listening and anyone who has someone who is dealing with a mental health crisis because of losing their job or some other issue happening as a result of the changes that are going on in the country, really understand that this is a major chaotic move. So understanding what you're dealing with can sometimes help you more keep yourself level. I walk a lot because I just feel as though that's what helps me move through the psychological barrage of information that I know that's impacting other people. Primarily, when you go to kindergarten, everyone wants you to treat your neighbor with respect. I don't understand how we got away from keep your hands to yourself, don't touch her stuff, don't touch her, to now I'm just taking all your stuff. I don't understand how we got there, but we are here. So it's something that we'll just have to deal with. And I just believe that personally, keeping yourself mentally okay and stable and doing what you can is going to be very helpful for us to move through this.
Abena.
I feel a lot of things, and I'm going to try to sum it up and make it short and sweet. But first, I feel optimistic. Funny enough, I feel optimistic because I know that our history demands that we remember who we are and that we honor the resilience that we've always had. So I'm encouraged, actually. It's in times like these that we figure it out. We find a way to come together. We find a way to survive. And I know that we will make it through this. I want to encourage everybody to forge some bonds in your communities. And I mean, tight-knit people that you can connect to and be yourself with. I think that's going to be critically important as we move forward. And to not limit yourself as far as the definition of community to your geographic boundaries. We are global people, as Dr. Nagu said. Yeah, we live in Iowa. Yeah, Rena lives in Michigan. We are everywhere people are. So we should not define ourselves based on our geography. Know that our community goes beyond the borders of whatever state or city you live in. We are bigger than that. I think so. Beyond forging those bonds with people with like minds, I do want to speak to the legislation that just happened yesterday about transgender people, because I know that a lot of Black communities grapple with whether or not to have a thought out loud about it. So I want to say that I'm not here to take one stance. I'm going to say and remind us that when the state decides that one group is no longer worthy of protection, it sets a dangerous precedent. And that what happens to the next vulnerable group, we need to be thinking about that. So my challenge and my ask to us Black folks is that we zoom out and analyze these legislative actions, not just as isolated attacks, but think about it on the broader sense of James Baldwin's quote. I've been saying this quote for the last several days is, if they come for you in the morning, they will come for us at night. And we need to ask ourselves whether or not we can afford to let the concept of protected classes be dismantled. You can focus in on whatever group you want to or not. But the overarching concept is we need to be thinking about the concept of protected class and making sure that that remains intact and holding our legislators accountable for that.
Absolutely. Sewell, would you like to go next?
So a few things that cross my mind would be, right now, I think we're in the growing pain stage of this. We know that some of us will end up hurting more than others, possibly based off of financial aspects. For example, those that may end up losing SNAP and they're going to need SNAP benefits. The summer is coming. Kids are going to be out of school. The resources are gone. I think we need to look at community-wise and how we can build to aid should such an event occur. we also need to identify our resources. So in this phase, I feel like we need to be cognizant of how we spend, if we can, buy Black, support Black businesses more. It's funny because I was looking at this Black online magazine that shows a whole bunch of Black resources, and I actually came across a Black business that has paint. So if I wanted to paint my wall, they actually offer paint, which I was like, so I got that pinned. But we need to know that the resources are out there, and we just need to be more cognizant of how we spend our money. I want to say this too shall pass. Uh, you know, there's the saying that if God brought you to it, he could bring you through it. And I just want to tell people, just keep the faith. But at this point in time, just look to community. There is so much that each of us bring to the table. Put forth the effort to get involved. Not always look for somebody else to be doing it and either piggyback off of or tear down. Get involved. Do something. If you see something that's not up to your standard or you would do it better, open your mouth, say something, bring something to the table. Let's build internally. This is not about the whole I.e. crabs in a barrel situation anymore. We're past that stage. We just need to get up, get involved, look internally, and do better for our people. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Kelly, did you want to go next?
Amen, Kelly.
Kelly, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Sorry about that. So
Mhm.
first, I wanted to say just thank you to everybody for coming here in community and continuing to come into community, because these conversations are so vital. It's so important to not only give ourselves voice, but also give ourselves ears so we can hear one another. And I think that that's probably my biggest takeaway from this conversation. My word for this year, I always have a word for the year. My word for this year is curious. And I've found that just in these past 2 months, I've had lots of opportunities to be curious. And I think this is another one. Let's get curious about how we spend our money. If you haven't been curious about it before, this is a perfect time to get curious. Let's get curious about the services and resources that are available between us, creating community between us and finding a way to get those resources to others. And of course, I always have to have my librarian hat on. Get curious about your local library. Get curious about your public library. See what resources are there that can be of resource to you or to someone else. I think sometimes we, all of us, the fact that you can even be in this conversation electronically is a sign of privilege. So all of us have some level of privilege. And sometimes we can get blinded to maybe someone else doesn't have that resource. Let's find out how we can get those resources to other people. Let's create pathways so we can make it easier to spend money amongst ourselves and be supportive of small business. But yeah, I would say my biggest takeaway is, just get curious, continue to stay in touch outside of this call, and above all, reach out to one another. Sometimes Black people don't like to ask for help. You know how it is, but let's continue to ask for help amongst one another in this safe environment. So thank you. And again, big thank you to Dana for providing this platform today.
Thank you so much. Leah?
I was like, she gonna just skip me and we can end. And it's okay. I was trying to take notes and listen to what everyone had said and just capping on it. The biggest thing that has always come to me as someone that has organized community at a smaller level is that I feel like sometimes we get so comfortable when we see small changes, we forget to always stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And for me, it has been a little heartbroken because what I saw yesterday was a lot of Iowans at the Capitol pushing to not raise gender identity. And I thought that was just so pivotal, but it would be nice to see us all do that at all times. And it's not just our selective groups advocating for just this particular group. Like at the end of the day, it's about our humanity. It's about all of our civil rights and our liberties. And with that being said, I do agree, like we have to, at the end of the day, take times to rest. I think there's a big thing in rest to resist. because you cannot always fight everything. But back to the point of making that we got to hold the people that's in power accountable, even though the system is not for us. It may be too radical to say, hey, we may need to go back to where we have a party that's for us to sit there and come together, because seeing that these laws that are rolling out and are getting more serious and it's creating more problems when it comes to just existing or how we're going to get our education. And yes, we have privilege to be on social media. Some of us are privileged that, we can own our own businesses, but not everyone has those resources. And so I would like to see us stay active, not when we're trying to fight against whatever is in place.
Thank you so much. Did you want to add anything before I have my 2 cents?
Can you hear me without it echoing?
So far.
Okay. Well, I left a peer review article in the chat box about addressing challenges of dealing with mental health in African Americans. And also what I really wanted to sound off on, what I've done in my experience is the day that I woke up and I lost my mind. And I'm so glad I lost it, because I lost my white mind. And I learned there was a need for me to bring my Africanness back into me and find out what my Africanness and my Blackness was all about. And once I got on that journey, on that path that I've been following for quite some time to a degree, I came to the point where I knew it was time. It's time to change. It's time to do what we had to do, because we as a people, if we understand sometimes we might really be in that caterpillar state, about to go into our cocoon to become the butterfly that we're supposed to be. We're going through an awful lot on the ground, but it's time for us to come together and go back up and start flying instead of crawling. And this is a time for us to make the effort right now while the iron is hot. It's time to start hitting that metal and making what we want, not what someone else is telling us that we need, but we want and what we need as a people.
Thank you so much. First of all, I just want to say I appreciate everyone's input. I appreciate you being here today. What I'm trying to do with the virtual statewide call and with this platform is just start the conversation. To understand that we are having these conversations, that we are thinking deeply about these issues, that we're supportive of one another, and that, I guess from my perspective, I want to see people fight. I want to see people challenge that needs to be challenged. So if we need to come together to challenge things legally, if we need to make some sort of stand in the street, we need to elevate what we're doing in terms of not letting these changes just roll over us. And even if we don't have the political power, for example, our actions, our words, our work in the community is setting the stage to change it in the future. And at this stage, I think it's just so important to be vocal in opposition to these attacks on us as Black people, to these attacks on our history, our culture, and to fight them at every turn. And so part of this platform to publicly say that we're not for that and we're not going, and we have help and we're going to fight, and that we're going to forge new relationships with one another so that we can. Black people are very helpful, but the Black community is beautiful. And I know that as a journalist, when I've needed help, someone that has helped me, inspired me to start a statewide newspaper, probably at this point, the longest statewide newspaper running by a Black woman in Iowa's history. Don't get told, but it is. So that's the kind of things that we can do when we come together, inspire each other, learn from each other. That's why it's important for, Black Iowa News and myself to be connected to people the Goose and Rena and Abana and Leah and everyone else. And we'll grow it from here. We'll add more voices. And so if you watch this, if you've been in the comments, we want you to be a part of that statewide call on Wednesdays at noon. We want you to be a part of these future conversations where we say, hey, it's important enough right now in this time that we come together out that's happening today and how each of us feel about it and how we're participating in it, that we come together and say our mental health is important. We know these times of challenges are challenging, but there are ways that we're going to help one another. And maybe, it wasn't always happening before, but we know in the future, we're going to need to lean on each other more. And that's really what this conversation was about today. So I really appreciate everybody coming and look for more from us. We're going to do more. We're going to keep the conversations going. We're going to promote each other more than we ever have so that our community knows what it needs to know. So thank you so much for coming today. Y'all have a great rest of your day.